Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons review show with myself and Sloth. We are going to be breaking down the 1-1 draw against Fulham, looking at the key highlights in the game and finding the why behind the what. There were a few things that happened. Let's start off with a lineup, Sloth, because it wasn't, to be honest, what we expected or wanted to see when we did our preview show. Before we get into this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel as we're trying to hit 3,000 subscribers and we're very close. So would be much appreciated. Here's the lineups. It was interesting because Paqueta didn't play. I think it was because of the slight delay he had coming back from Brazil. But then also Antonio played and he's been in Jamaica. So, I mean, that kind of negates that. As we said, we thought maybe Somerville would come into this lineup. We thought we'd see Jared Bowen as a striker, Kudus on the right, and then Somerville on the left. And then we wanted to see basically Paqueta in there instead of Souček in that midfield. Other than that, that's what we kind of predicted. Maybe Todibo coming in from Mavropanos, but we didn't really think that was going to happen. And then on Fulham's side, the only real evident change were two changes was Anderson in centre back for Diop and Jimenez up front for Muniz. So I think as soon as the lineups were announced, we were saying it as well before that midfield three of Souček, Alvarez, Guido Rodriguez is too slow. It's not mobile enough. There's no creativity. There's no link between the front three and the middle three. And we're going to just get suffocated and, the ball's going to be recycled. So what were your thoughts to that starting 11 from Lopetegui?
I was very disappointed. I think a lot of West Ham fans were, like, especially if you looked on social media. I think it painted a very grim picture. But I do think that there's a lot of sort of fitness reasons that, it's still very early doors. A lot of players aren't fully match fit. They've come back from international tournaments. All of that jazz and excuses that I know people don't want to hear, but I think it's still at that point in the season where people will use that as a bit of an excuse. And then also the fact that you are, as a manager coming into a club, you are still looking to give the established players a chance.
Yeah.
And I think particularly with Souček and Antonio, Lopetegui would have just said, look, you have to impress me and you have to go out and do something. And we both know how that went. I think it was really disappointing. I have to really give credit to Tete yesterday. I thought he was outstanding for Fulham. And I know we were kind of talking about that right back spot and targeting that side of the pitch. But I think, to be honest, he had a really good game. And he really frustrated Kudus in the, there were a couple of moments in the first half where he did get at him, but in the second half, I think he stepped it up. But just on the West Ham side of things, I think that it's disappointing to see a lack of rotation, but it is very early doors. And I think that, like I said, when you are coming into a new club and you're looking to get players on side, find your best 11, that's the most important thing as well. Like, he would have done this because he thinks he can rely on these players. He thinks he can rely on Souček and Antonio. Like, they're not getting into the squad because they're emerging talents. It's the case for multiple seasons, we've been able to rely on them. And Lopetegui's basically going, look, this is a chance. So
I think there has to be blame for how Lopetegui set up. I'll be honest. I think we can say that there was fitness issues, etc. But you've got a fresh Somerville on the bench that we wanted to start anyway, that could have easily played in that 11 from the start. And maybe if you want to rest Paqueta, okay, that's fine. But then you've got Carlos Soler on the bench who's ready to play and is a bit more of a ball player than, say, Thomas Souček. I mean, Souček in the first half, he completed 7 passes in total, and he attempted 7 passes in total and completed just 4 of them. It was a really frustrating game for him and Antonio, to be honest. Antonio's hold-up play in that first half was diabolical, to be honest. It was awful. And he just looked out of sync. There were a few good moments in the first half where we were playing one-touch football. Bowen was linking up with a midfield and Wan-Bissaka. As soon as it got to Antonio, took a touch, didn't know what to do. And then that was kind of it. It killed the attack because they were just turning over the ball. But it was a frustrating first half. I think they completely dominated it. there were two big, obviously, events in the first half. The first one was the penalty shout, which we want to break down because it involves the new Lopetegui system and how we're trying to play as well. So this is the Traore shout, which happened around 15 minutes into the game, and it actually comes from us pressing Fulham when they have the ball with the goalkeeper. So Leno plays the ball over to Anderson, which is the first trigger. You can see Souček's gone man for man, which he did in the first half onto Lukic, the defensive midfielder. Kudus goes into Anderson, and then you can see Emerson in the bottom right-hand side going straight into Tete as the trigger, because as soon as that ball's played, this is what Lopetegui's coaching them to do. And Alvarez as well, you can see they're just out of picture coming into where Pereira is. So this is something we've worked on in the training ground, which is good to see. This is a positive. Let's take it forward a slight frame. You can see here the result of that press. We've boxed Fulham in. We haven't just dropped deep into a block. Kudus has kind of triggered that press into here. Emerson's really quick into Tete, which is good. Alvarez is very close to Pereira. Souček's still following Lukic. So this looks very, very good, and it looks very tough for Fulham to get out of, and they're forced to go long. However, you'll see the issues with the personnel when we've got this one-to-one man press that we're trying to do with Lopetegui. And, I thought Mavropanos had a really poor game yesterday. Yeah. I don't think Kilman was as bad, but he definitely made some errors as well. But here you can see Traore is immediately on the go after Kilman. You can see Kilman slightly flat-footed, but again, Traore is going to blitz him anyway. But Mavropanos, all he has to do here when the ball comes over to him is just head it out of play. He tries to head it back into either Alvarez or Guido, because you can kind of see definitely Guido's got a little bit of time on the ball there. So if he can get that, we've turned over the ball, and that's a successful press in Lopetegui's eyes. But you just have to knock the ball out of play here, because what ends up happening is this. He heads it towards Traore. Traore takes a big touch in field, and then he's through. And this is why I think we believe it was not a penalty, Slough, because you can see here the direction that Traore is running in is diagonally left, and he was through. He had the space to keep going straight and get the shot off 1v1 versus Areola, but he takes a touch inside onto the left, and he almost tries to get his body in front of Kilman, and he's just waiting for that contact, as so many players do now when they get into the box. They try and get their body between man and ball and just drop to the floor. And that's exactly what happens with Traore. He knows he can't get the shot off really because he's gone too far left, and he can sense Kilman's behind him. Kilman puts an arm on him, but he doesn't push him. It's not like a massive push down. You can see here in the zoomed picture, Traore's left leg slightly comes up, and he's just trying to get across. This frame, like, you wouldn't expect Traore to be through one-on-one about to take a shot by the way Traore's standing. That's the key point here. He's come across Kilman to drop to the floor. So what about for you, Slough? Is it a penalty or not a penalty? Because in my opinion, it's no way near a penalty. I'm not sure what Marco Silva's crying about in his press conferences. It's just not a penalty.
No, I think if the way I would kind of say to people watching is that if you can imagine that, if that was a West Ham player and you're saying that should be a penalty and a red card, that's bias. It's pure and simple bias.
He should have scored. He was through one-on-one.
Yeah. The bigger error here is that Traore's decision-making there is an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
And as you said, he tries to cut in across Kilman, and he's looking for the two-handed push. That's what he's looking for. And Kilman just brings his arm up like that because Traore has stuck himself in front of him. And anyone who's played football will know that doesn't send you to the ground. It might get you a little bit off balance, but it
doesn't send Traore to the ground. That's for sure.
No, and it certainly doesn't send you over when you're built like a brick shithouse. Like, it's just nonsense. And he should be burying that. We should be 1-0 down.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing from a grown man to throw yourself to the ground like that. Look, I understand Marco Silva's frustration, but that frustration should be targeted at one person, and that is Traore, not the official. The referee was poor, so I'm not surprised he feels like he got decisions wrong, but that's not a foul. And in terms of it being a red card, we have already mentioned he's he's taking it away from the goal. His body is facing a different way. I don't think you can call it denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity because it's a contact sport. There's going to be contact. the contact is not a foul. It doesn't suddenly mean that because it's in the penalty area, any sort of contact is a foul.
That's the key point, isn't it? That's what people now, and managers especially, they think that contact equates to a foul. It's not the case. And you can see there that Traore instigated the contact. Yes, Kilman does put his arm on him and is very, very fortunate to get away with it, but it's not a penalty. It's not a penalty. And what did you make of the press? Because that's how it came from. I actually really like the man-for-man press. It's just that final issue with Mavropanos there. Do you like seeing that from Lopetegui with this pressing and, trying to put Fulham under a bit of pressure?
I like the intent because that will force mistakes. It will force mistakes. Unfortunately, that mistake was on our end, but it will force mistakes from the opposition. And I think the frustration for us is that, as you quite rightly said, there comes a point where your decision making has to be about minimalizing the mistakes and the possibility of conceding a goal. And Mavropanos has just not done that. And it's something that we've seen in quite a few games. The Crystal Palace flick is the one that I keep mentioning.
Yeah.
But when he tried to backheel it and gave Crystal Palace a very clear-cut chance, his decision-making impacts you. And it's something that I think yesterday he did some good things, but his decision-making overall was really poor and basic defensive ones. As you said, he should be putting that out for a throw. Yeah. But it's just nonsense. He's trying to overplay it.
What annoys me as well is like Mavropanos normally just knocks out a play anyway, like for a throw in. He never normally tries to make a risk in those situations, or if he's getting pressed and he's in a tight area in our third, he'll just knock it out for a throw. So I'm not sure why he didn't just head it straight out, but we got away with it. I liked the intent, as you say. I think that will result in mistakes for the opposition and turnovers in their area, in their half. But on this occasion, just got it wrong. And there is a danger of going man-to-man if those kind of things happen because, yes, we've pressed them, but look at the space. Look at the space between our midfield and defence here. It's very disjointed if it doesn't come off and a mistake happens. So we're talking about Mavropanos there. We also think he was pretty much at fault for the goal for Fulham that came just, 10 minutes after that Traore penalty claim. So let's go through that and break that down because you can see here the first issue is, again, someone who didn't play very well, Thomas Souček, tries to give the ball to Bowen over the top, but it gets intercepted very, very easily by Robinson. And that's the first mistake. Okay, that's fine. Regroup. They've got the ball. Let's see what happens. Lukic gets the ball, plays a simple square pass to Pereira. And this is what we mentioned in the preview about Pereira and Smith Rowe playing on the right and the left and connecting in triangles. So Smith Rowe's the target on the right-hand side. You can see he's picking up that space between midfield and defence. And you can see that on the left-hand side, Iwobi, Smith Rowe and Robinson, that triangle, which we mentioned was going to be an issue or was something that Fulham like to do on that left-hand side. That's what they tried to do. You can see our midfield box three there of Alvarez, Guido and Souček. We look okay here. The only slight issue we've got here is as soon as Pereira picks up this ball on the half turn, we should be expecting runs in behind from Traore. We should be expecting runs in behind from Smith Rowe and Iwobi. But Wan-Bissaka is slightly out of position, a little bit too high up, and not really recovering fast enough, sort of jogging back in. But the next mistake is as soon as Pereira gets the ball, Smith Rowe, very intelligent footballer, someone we mentioned in the preview as well that could be an issue in that number 8 position for us. He recognises that danger and he makes that run in behind. As soon as that ball's played, you can see the issue. And it's Mavropanos. He's not in line with the defense. We played a high line 2 minutes before this, and the offside trap worked perfectly. We got the offside against Fulham. The line was perfectly held, and we were in shape. However, you can see here, look, Wan-Bissaka and Kilman, they're slightly more in front, and all Mavropanos needs to do is be 2 yards further or 1 yard further, a little bit in line with his centre-back. And this doesn't happen because Smith Rowe has made a very good run. Mavropanos should have been alerted to that, but he almost goes back a little bit with Smith Rowe by instinct and then tries to step up, which disjoints the back four. And then from that, you can see, again, he's trying to play offside. He's not really looking at what's happening. He's kind of jogging back in. And then we get into this situation here. 2 mistakes. Number one is Mavropanos. He closes Smith Rowe down, but the ball goes through his legs, which should never, ever happen. He has to block that from going in. And the second mistake is Kilman. Kilman can see him there. You can see the glance over his left shoulder. He knows Jimenez is making that darting run in towards the near post. Most strikers will do that. They might dart in and out, but Kilman has to stay with him because this is Fulham's only option. Iwobi's too far away from the play. Traore's not involved as well, and Emerson's way deeper than Traore is, so he's covering that off. We know what's going to happen here, but Kilman's too slow to react, and the ball goes through Mavropanos' legs. You can see, look, literally 2 frames ahead, and Jimenez has the run on Kilman. That cannot happen. And then obviously the goal comes in. Kilman's too slow to it, and Areola can't save it at his front post. So who does the blame lie with here, Sloth? I think it's interesting to break it down because there's a mistake from Souček initially. There's a mistake from Wan-Bissaka slightly. There's a mistake from Mavropanos, and there's a mistake from Kilman. So there's not just one person to point there, but that goal was very easily avoidable, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think, look, first of all, the ball that Souček trying to play as well, it's not a hard ball. No. It's not a tough pass. It's really poor from him. It's one of my frustrations that it's not even like he's trying to be clever. It's not one of those like, oh, it's a really tough ball through. He gives it away, and it's just really poor from him. The other thing that really gets my goat is Mavropanos' look across to the flag. He's ambling along. Now, even when I was doing my refs exam 15 years ago, every official is told a late flag is a great flag. Why are you looking across? Do your job, chase the man. Like, if it is offside, the referee will blow and he will give the decision.
It's VAR as well.
You have no factor in what he's doing. So why are you looking? Chase the man. Like, if he was looking at his centre-back partner to see if he's level, fair enough. But he's very clearly not.
Yeah.
And he is quick. So why is he ambling? It's so slow. It's really poor. For me, it's on Mavropanos because he should be doing way more. He should be level with Kilman. He should be watching and also doing a lot more to cover the ground and chase back.
Yeah.
But then to be nutmegged like that is embarrassing. As well. Is embarrassing as a centre back. Like,
what did you make of Kilman's role in that? Do you someone like Jimenez? He's someone that's going to make that dying. He's not rapid by any means. Kilman should have that, right? Kilman has to stay with him.
He should, but I think the mistake he makes is that he expects Mavropanos not to get beaten by that pass. Yeah. And that is a mistake. But for me, I just think the bigger error is Mavropanos letting that situation happen. And it creates the chance. Obviously, Areola doesn't cover himself in glory, but I think it's really poor centre back play. And for me, it's something that we've spoken about poor performances having consequences, and it should face consequence really, because that first half I thought Mavropanos in particular was very poor. And look, Kilman wasn't great, but there was a very good run that he made. I think it was in about the 12th minute when he broke forward, and
I think it was less than. I think it was only a few minutes in. I remember that. Yeah.
He carried the ball really well, and he had no one besides Bowen and Kudus who were moving. Yeah. And it was like, if you have a striker who's making that move and can see that and recognize it, you could tear Fulham apart there. Mm-hmm. But I think Kilman he didn't do that again. And I think it was because he just felt like he didn't have an option up top that he could link it through to, or someone who would make space for the runner, because Antonio was just getting sucked onto that right-hand side. At times he was playing out on the wing, and people can say all they want. Oh, he was going out onto the winger position because he'd been told to go there. He was going out there because he was having absolutely zero joy against their centre-backs, and he was trying to do something different.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Antonio's done that a lot when he plays striker. He will drift wide a lot, and there wasn't really that rotation with Bowen and Kudus when that was happening, so it was just leaving us kind of very disjointed. But I think with that goal, as you say, Mavropanos has to do better there. And there were a few people involved in that goal that have to do better. But it was frustrating, but it was, to be honest, expected from the way we started the first 25 minutes. In the first half, we had 4 shots, 0 on target. Fulham had 11, 4 on target, all of them coming inside the box bar 3 shots, and they had 2 big chances and they missed one. I think it was the Traore header when he came in at the back post on Emerson, which again was way too easy, the cross coming in. So first half was poor Slough. We were crying for changes at second half. It was very obvious who needed to come off. Antonio had to come off. There was no two ways about it. And we needed to get Souček off because that midfield 3 wasn't working. And to be fair to Lopetegui, this is where there's pros and cons to how people perceive Lopetegui for this game. The con is he started the game with a setup that was never going to work. So it's a bit frustrating that was the starting 11. And the pro is he wasn't stubborn with it. He made the changes at halftime, made 2 changes at halftime. Paqueta came in for Souček. Somerville came in for Antonio. Bowen moved to striker. Kudus over to the right. Somerville to the left. And instantly in that first 5 to 10 minutes of the second half, we looked a lot better and a lot more connected between the midfield and attack. And Somerville, I thought, had a really, really good second half and was connecting things, was making runs in behind, was just giving Fulham something different to think about. And then Bowen was moving across the line. Kudus came out to the right-hand side where he's a lot more effective than on the left. And it just looked a bit more balanced. So were you encouraged by Lopetegui's early changes into the second half?
100%, because it was the most obvious, they were the most obvious solutions. And I think that when you risk as a manager basically saying go and impress me for 10 minutes or go and show me what you can do, and he just had none of it. I think it was also the fact that I think both players, Souček and Antonio's performances, did not warrant that chance. So I think when Somerville came on, he looked really sharp. He looked very confident carrying the ball. His work rate showed up quite a few times, and he got stuck in, was putting himself about. And I think as soon as he gets a goal, I think we'll see a different player. His head will be up more, and he'll have his tail up. So I think, as you said, we looked a lot more fluid, and the interesting thing for me wasn't just the hold-up play that I thought Bowen really massively improved on. It was the overall movement and the fact that he wasn't coming close to Kudus to give him an option. He was creating space, putting the centre backs away, and he was using his agility and pace to find that extra bit of yard, like that extra yard or 2 away from their centre backs. And Bassi and Anderson are very good centre backs. Bassi is very physical, but also agile. So to get that yard against him, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And I think that they changed it completely second half.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the first 10 to 15 minutes of the second half, we were really good. And I thought things were starting to change a little bit. Then it went into a little bit of lull. Fulham started to control it a little bit more. And then we started to see the subs. The first one that was made was forced because Emerson went off injured, and actually Kufal came in and probably wouldn't have played. And we're going to touch on the goal in a second with how he was involved. But Wan-Bissaka went out to left back. Kufal came in. And then we were starting to roll the dice a little bit more. And Lopetegui was changing it and going more attacking gradually. And by the end of the game, our midfield was Paqueta and Soler as a double pivot. And then Ings came on to play as kind of like the second striker with Bowen, and Kudus was on the right, Somerville on the left. They were kind of swapping at moments. But there was a chance just before that where, as you say, where Kudus last season created a lot of chances and a lot of goals for us. Think of like Burnley away. I think there was a Europa League match away as well where Souček headed it back really late on to win 1-0. It came from those Kudus crosses from the right-hand side, and it's something he's very good at. And it came in the second half when Kudus cut inside, crossed it into Bowen. Bowen made a fantastic touch onto his right foot and should have scored, to be honest. He was 1v1 with Leno. It was a good save, but he should have scored it. And as you say, when you compare with who would have been striker there, Antonio, Does Antonio make that first touch like Bowen and get the shot away? Absolutely not. Which is why I think we'll touch on it at the end, but why we feel like Antonio shouldn't be the striker moving forwards when Fulkirk's injured. And it's better to play someone like Bowen there because it's just a better footballer and he can play it better. So there were signs where we were trying to push. I think we got quite desperate in the end. Before we get onto our goal, do you think Soler was lucky to be on the pitch because he got booked and then he made a very, very clumsy foul just 5 minutes before this? And to be honest, I thought he should have got a second yellow for it.
I think by the letter of the law, he could easily have had a second yellow.
Yeah.
But I thought the ref was abysmal, and I think he realised he was harsh with the first yellow and basically said, this is your final one, you're on thin ice. But that is how a referee should be. And referees aren't perfect. The one yesterday certainly wasn't, but I think that is an example of good refereeing. And where someone, it wasn't. No, look, it is. This is the frustrating thing. It is a yellow card. However, the first challenge was not in any way.
But he was booked for dissent, wasn't he? The first one was dissent.
It's not dissent. Like it
was.
It wasn't. Like I personally don't think it's a yellow card. Like okay. I think it's frustrating. I know they're trying to implement this law of only the captain goes over to the ref. I think that's kind of naff, but I just think it was very light booking, and particularly for what he'd been called up for a foul in the first place.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a bit ridiculous in my opinion. I think you can say he was lucky to be on the pitch, but I also think it's an example of good refereeing where if someone's just made one challenge like that, because it wasn't like he was getting stuck in and making lots of silly challenges, he just made the one. You have, as a referee, you have to say, look,
context,
this is your final one. It's
I think he was lucky to get away. I think the first one, as you say, it was an unfortunate yellow card because the foul wasn't a yellow card, and I think the dissent rule is kind of getting a little bit skewed and vague because of it comes into the referee's interpretation of it.
I understand the dissent law as like how they've tried to take it, but I think that what they've tried to do is give the officials more authority to the place where it's like rugby. Yeah. And only the captain comes over and the player involved, and the player involved kind of stands there while they're being told off and looks sad. That's what the FA want. That's what the officials kind of expect. But that's not how football works. Mm-hmm. And we've taken ourselves far too away from that being the situation.
Yeah.
And I thought it was laughable.
Is what it is. I think that he was, because he knew he was on a yellow card, the second tackle is silly from Soler. I think that is a yellow card tackle. But as you say, the ref's probably gone into it with context. And, Lukic as well should have been booked in the first half, and then he made a cynical foul in the second half. So again, there's arguments, but then he might not have made that foul if he knew he was on a yellow card. So it's swings and roundabouts. The bottom line was the ref had a very poor game yesterday. I don't think he had control over it, especially in the first half. He was awarding Fulham a lot. And then there was even moments in the second half where we were getting fouls for things. Wan-Bissaka dropped himself to the floor in the second half and we got a foul for it. So he should have refed it better. But it didn't matter. We kept going. We didn't give up. Lopetegui kept rolling the dice until something stuck. And I just got that creepy feeling towards the end that something could happen. We played in a ball just before the goal, which was excellently headed away. I think it was Anderson in the box for Fulham. But we kept going. And what I love about this goal is we've seen this combination how many times with Kufau and Bowen. We saw it in the Europa Conference League final. It's how we got the penalty. And you can see here, Robinson, he's kind of jogging back in, 94th minute. There's not too much danger here. The ball's gone out of play. Bowen's straight alert to it. Bowen's jogging over, trying to get the ball quickly. Robinson's just ambling back in. And you'll see exactly here what I'm talking about. Bowen on the right-hand side is already making that run as soon as the ball is thrown to Kufal. Look at the Fulham 5 players in shot there that I've circled. Robinson's pointing over there, not looking. Bassey's pointing over there, not looking. Sanderberg in the middle doing his hair, too bothered about his appearance rather than looking at the play. And then you've got 2 players over there, Tete, and I'm not sure who that other one is in there, but they've got Anderson, sorry. So they're all pointing away or looking away. No one's alert to this situation, which is why I love what we've done here. And then if we move the frame slightly forwards, Bowen does fantastically well to keep this ball in, especially in the 95th minute, sprinting after the ball and as well, not just keeping the ball in, but able to cut it back to someone like Danny Ings on his right foot as well. And Danny Ings, you can see there, Fox in the box. We know if you want the ball to fall to someone, to be honest, Danny Ings is pretty high on my list of who I'd want it to fall to in the penalty area. And he just makes a very, very intelligent move in field. One thing as well is to highlight is we spoke about Fulham's 4-3-3, and you can see Sanderberg in the kind of middle of your picture there as the holding midfielder, and then Reed and Kearney, they're too far forwards because they've also been caught out by the long throw, and that creates the gap for Danny Ings to sort of run into without any challenge. And then this part is key. The ball comes across. You can see highlighted there, just under Anderson's boot, the ball misses it. So when it comes to Ings, he has a split second to see the ball and to prepare himself for what's about to happen. The ball comes through to him. The fact that it's come so fast means he can't shoot first time to that first arrow in the bottom left. He has to take a touch because it's very unexpected that Anderson misses the ball and it just goes under his foot. So the only option here is to take a touch back across goal and shoot. And Sloth, this touch was unbelievable. I'm not going to gloss over it because look at where the ball ends up from his touch. He completely takes away both players running across to him. And then again, the only place he can shoot here is bottom right because Anderson is now ready to block the shot into the bottom left. And Leno's a bit flat-footed in goal. You can see there he's not really prepared enough for it. And Danny Ings, fantastic touch and drills it into the bottom right-hand corner. And so happy for him to get a goal. And, again, he's showing his worth as a substitute for West Ham in a big moment. And what did you make of the goal, Sloth? Because it was right at the end of the game. I thought we kind of snatched something at the end there. And yeah, very happy for Danny Ings to get the goal.
I think we kind of deserved it on the balance of play. I know people were saying we got quite lucky, but I just think the second half we were the better team and we just didn't really take chances, but we didn't really create chances.
There weren't enough moments, yeah.
No, but this is the prime example of how Danny Ings should be used. And we've been very critical of Danny Ings on this channel, but I think a large part of that was down to the fact he was playing in a Moyes system, and he's not a Moyes player.
Yeah,
and this is what Danny Ings does. As you said, it's a fantastic first touch to take it away from basically take 2 centre backs out the game straight away, and then the finish is great. But he is not someone who was ever going to be able to do the Antonio role. He was never going to be able to hold it up like him or skin men for pace. This is the kind of thing that he does, and in my opinion, he's earned himself the right to be the striker coming off the bench, and 100%. I think that now it should be Bowen who's starting up top, and
not Fulkirk.
Look, well, he's got this Achilles tendonitis, so I think it's
for now
potentially going to be out for a few weeks. But if Bowen gets in a good run of form, then you don't drop him. But I think that Ings has, your striker's there to score goals, and if he can do that coming off the bench, if he continues to, add goals by performing like this and having that impact, then he 100% deserves that position. But I think for me, Antonio's dropped down the pecking order now. Like it is a very ruthless game, but the quality of this goal tells me that it's this is a player who has got his tail up, and you can almost rely on, as you said, he's an excellent finisher, and there aren't many players you'd want it to fall to other than him in that kind of scenario.
I think as well with Danny Ings, I was speaking to my brother about this yesterday. When he's come on as a sub, there hasn't really been many occasions where he hasn't performed well, unless he's gone in to play as a solo striker. When he's come in to play as that second striker or as a number 10 off a striker, he's actually been very good. And his worst performances have come when he started or played as a solo striker, which we know he can't do. It was the same with Chicharito when he was at West Ham. You know, when we were trying to play him as the lone striker, didn't work. When he was coming off the bench or we were chasing a goal and went up 2 up top or played a 4-4-2, he was so much better. He was really influential in the game. And like you said there, if the ball falls to someone in the box when we're thinking of Kudus, Somerville, Bowen, Danny Ings is pretty high on my list of who I'd want that to fall to, because that's his first shot. That's his first shot of the game. He hasn't had that many touches in the game up to this point. So again, that touch inside, I can't undervalue how good that touch is and how difficult that is to execute, especially because he sees the ball so late when Anderson misses it under his foot. So massively happy for Danny Ings. And I think, as you say there, when you're looking at an option to come off the bench, when you're chasing a game or you're drawing and you want to go 2 up top and you want to apply a bit of pressure into a tired defense, get Danny Ings in that box, because something will drop to him and he'll finish it more 9 times out of 10.
Another thing that I have to give a lot of credit to is Soufal's throw.
Yeah.
And look, I have been frustrated for a long time by West Ham's throw-ins. It's sometimes my dad and I will just sit there and like spit feathers at some of the decision making. This is an excellent throw, and you know, as you mentioned, he completely catches the Fulham defenders cold. Soufal deserves a lot of credit as well, because when he came on, I thought he looked sharp. It was probably Aaron Wan-Bissaka's worst game in a West Ham shirt. It's very early days, so I don't want to be too harsh.
No, I agree.
But he dithered a lot. He let the ball come to him instead of actually going and meeting it. And again, that is something that even in kids football, you're taught not to do. You know, it's you go and meet the ball. And far too often, I think that he let Fulham win back possession, or he gave them a sniff where he was just a bit lackadaisical and didn't put in the same effort. I think when he went to left back, he looked sharper. It was almost like a bit of a wake-up call. But Soufal, as soon as he came on, he was after everything. And he was up and down that right-hand side. And look, Aaron Wan-Bissaka deserves to start. I think Soufal deserves a lot of recognition for this, but it's also now nice to feel pretty confident about that right back spot. And even to the degree that if Emerson has picked up a little knock, if he is out for a couple of weeks, then putting Aaron Wan-Bissaka at that left back spot, that's also quite a nice solution as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what will happen if Emerson is injured. And, you know, we got the draw, we got the point. And to be honest, when we look back on our season, it's a pretty good point. And it's an improvement on a 5-0 defeat from last season, isn't it, Stuff? So,
just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, do I think we deserve the point? Maybe, but I think the first half we should have been out of the game. They should have been 2 or 3 up, just because of how poor we were and how much they had, you know, in terms of domination. And second half, I think we gave them a lot more to think about. We left ourselves a little bit more exposed as we were trying to go for it, and that's where most of Fulham's shots and chances came from. It came in that kind of last 15 minutes. Before that, we limited Fulham to just 1 shot within the first kind of 20 minutes of the second half. So we were a lot more controlling. But again, there's a lot of work to do. We've highlighted there that Lopetegui's press, there's moments where it looks very good, but we need to be careful because the personnel we have still, it's a long process. You know, this isn't going to be an overnight thing where everything's going to click and we're going to be this transformed team. And you can kind of see here the stats breakdown over the 90 minutes. You know, Fulham double our XG, almost double our shots, 5 shots on target to our 3. They had 4 big chances, whereas we had 1. And yeah, you can see that the pass is not too dissimilar, but and again, we mentioned in the preview, the possession would probably be something like that, where it's quite similar. And you can see here the kind of momentum throughout the game as well. Fulham had a lot more of the momentum throughout, and you can see there in the second half, a lot of Fulham's creation in the second half came when we were trying to go for it. And obviously that last little spike there of Danny Ings in the right-hand side. And you can see here the shot overview, you know, a lot of Fulham's shots on the left-hand side of your picture came inside the box, which is worrying. Only 4 of their 21 shots were outside the box. Compare that with us, you know, 4 of our 11 shots were outside the box, you know, long range attempts from like Paqueta, Kudus, etc. So still work to do on the training ground, Slough. I think we're, again, as the personnel changes and we get more used to it and we get established what our strongest 11 is and the most balanced 11, this will improve. And the more we become familiar with the press, I think Todibo as well, once he comes into that back line, he could make a difference once he gets up to speed with how Lopetegui wants to play in the system. So there's still a lot to work on, but is this a good point for you? Is this a point gained, especially after losing and, you know, being in a losing position in the 95th minute of the match?
I think it's a frustrating point. Like, it's always good when you get a last minute equaliser. However, there's no 2 ways about it. I think we all wanted to win this game,
100%.
And I think when you put it into context, it's a very disappointing first half that bled over into the second, and that could have bled over into the second, but we did very well to turn it around.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the reaction has been very, I don't know, I don't want to say disingenuous, but I think it's just been way over the top. And yes, there are lots of reasons that the starting lineup wasn't correct. We don't know exactly why that was what he went for, but
yeah,
as I said earlier on, you know, I think he would have felt that he should give these players a chance. Antonio and Souček, the big 2. You know, they've been here long enough. They probably deserve it. Whether you agree with me or not on that is irrelevant. But, you know, in my opinion, I think they deserve that chance to kind of fight for their spot.
Yeah.
They haven't shown it. So I think the bigger question will be next week, you know, or against Chelsea, if the starting lineup is the same, that's when we can question things more and really pick at that. But you also have to give him praise for the way he turned it around second half, and he was ruthless with the changes. So it is a double-edged sword. I think the makings of a good side are there, and the fact is we're playing a good Fulham side.
Yeah.
Like, I think we gave Fulham credit in our preview, and we said that they are a strong side. We were very positive about the predictions, but you know, I think it was because we saw enough against Man City to feel that we could have won today. Could have won yesterday.
I think, as you mentioned, the first half let us down, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think those players have to take a lot of responsibility for that. And next week, I would be expecting 3 major changes.
Yeah.
And they then have to try and play their way back into contention. This isn't a case of, you know, you drop them and you oust them. These players have to be given a chance, at least up until January. So I think it's a tough start to the season. We have had incredibly tough fixtures, and it's also a very frustrating one because I think we could be sat here with 6 points. But we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I think don't undervalue the point away at Fulham. I think they're a very good side, a good side, and they have some good players in there. And, you know, as we highlighted in the preview, they have players that can hurt you, like Smith Rowe in the 8. And, you know, I'm surprised Jimenez started, but, you know, he got the goal against us. And as you say, we now move on to Chelsea, massive game at home. We're still, you know, we've lost our first 2 opening Premier League home games under Lopetegui. Again, they've been Villa and City, and Chelsea's a very tough game as well. But there's a lot of pressure now onto that to try and make a positive performance and get the result behind it as well. So, as you said, there's going to be changes for that. Before we finish off, who was your man of the match against Fulham?
I think it was probably Bowen. I think he showed enough across the 90 minutes. He was always an outlet in the first half. I think the frustration was that he didn't really get the ball that much. Like it was poor link-up play that really let us down. And he was always alert, always looked like an option. And I think his hard work is what makes that goal.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think first half he was poor with the rest of the team, and second half he was much better as well. I think he gained confidence being that kind of number 9, having the likes of Summerfield and Paqueta playing closer to him rather than Souček and Antonio. But yeah, I think the fact that he was so alert in the 95th minute, threw the ball to Kufal very quickly before Fulham reset, and managed to keep the ball in play and pass it back to Ings. I would agree. Maybe Bowen slightly edges it. I was tempted to give it to Ings. You know, that was pretty much his only involvement in the game when he came on.
He deserves a lot of praise for being able to stick that away. And as you said, the first touch is exquisite. So
yeah,
I think he definitely deserves his flowers.
Yeah, 100. And just his attitude as well. I don't know if you saw his post-match press conference with, I think it was the West Ham team, media team, but his attitude is fantastic. You know, he said he'll always be alert. He just wants to contribute to the team. He's been a professional his whole life. His attitude doesn't change. He's always going to be ready, working hard. And for those moments that happen when he's in the box like that, away at Fulham in the 95th minute, he's there to finish the chance. So, you know what? I'm going to give it to Ings. I'm going to give it to Ings because he deserves it. He deserves it for that impact on the match. And
I think as well, you know, just to add to that, he does deserve a lot of praise, and particularly when the club made no secret about potentially moving him on and looking to move him, you know, to come on and score a goal in the manner that he did. Fair play to the bloke.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
You've earned your 125 grand this week.
nearly. A few more goals, please. A few more goals. But there we go. There's our breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's a little bit of a longer one, but we like to break it down in a bit more detail for you just to see the why behind the goals and the stats that happen. But yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to take, especially from the approach in the second half. Lopetegui's non-stubbornness to make the changes to what wasn't working in the first half and change the dynamic of the match and continue to roll the dice in a match where we were only 1 goal behind and we weren't just leaving our players on the pitch. You know, he wasn't afraid to take off Alvarez, Guido, and go with a Paqueta Soler double pivot and throwings up top and, you know, roll the dice and get the goal. And, you know, those points at the end of the season could be very valuable for us, especially away from home. So yeah, positives to take, a lot to work on, as Lopetegui also mentioned in his post-match press conference. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you did, and subscribe to the channel, as we are going to be doing this every week for you. And we'll also have our preview shows and other bits and bobs as well on the channel. But yeah, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, Sloth.
Come on, you eyes.